was coming into my life out of nowhere, and I thought, well, maybe this is what I'm supposed to do. But while I went into it, and I was studying, and I was going through, I can't open to channel. It was a book by I can't think of her name right now.
Opening to channel. Yeah, I've heard of that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I was going through that, and I was, but once I started doing it, I started having doubts that who I was channeling. So I stopped. Because I just didn't feel like that, I was constantly wanting to ask, are you on the level? Are you telling me the truth? Or, that kind of feeling. So that could be my own self-doubt. But what's your opinion on channeling?
Well, I mean, there are, the universe is a big place. There's a Brazilian quote that says something like, just because he's dead doesn't mean he knows anything. Which means just because you're getting a spirit communication doesn't mean that it's from a very high or mature or even benevolent source. So people have to be careful. It's like tuning a radio to a certain frequency. What we get or who we get really depends on who we are, the purity of the calling and the seeking and the development of our mind and the stability of our desire for service to others. So, I don't know, a lot of people feel that just because it's channeled, it's somehow superior to other sources of information. That's not true at all, of course. I mean, if you study Buddhism or Hinduism, you see pretty deep teaching, talking about ultimate reality and nature of self or no self, unity, cosmic plan or creation. I think that channeling has a value, but people shouldn't assume it's the final word in spiritual reality. And the problem is people don't really know who they're getting. And if it's a conscious channel, meaning the person's consciously speaking or writing, it normally comes through the person's unconscious or their own personality. So there's lots of channeling that very much has the imprint of the channeler's own personality and belief system and book knowledge or their experiences. So, there was one well-known channel. I read something that he was talking about karma with a new view of karma, sort of like karma can be alleviated instantaneously by a shift of attitude. This is true, but not so easily done, and it's not intellectual. And, his take was something like the notions of karma came when teachers were trying to address starving hordes of people who needed some explanation as to why they were starving and having such a terrible condition to make them feel that, it's necessary and they just have to wait till the next life. Notions of karma had nothing to do with that kind of condition in the East, in India, let's say, several thousand years ago. It wasn't like that. So, but that's a channel, and he doesn't know where that source, what level is. So the source could be positive or negative. The source can be fourth or fifth or sixth density. And so if the source is basically talking about love and kindness and goodness, then it's likely from a fourth density positive. If it's technical, but useful, not gibberish and not hyper complex like some channeling out there. They invent many new terms for things for realities like karma or higher self or dimensions, and it seems to have the purpose of confusing people and making them learn a completely new vocabulary that just explains what other concepts are. Anyway, this is fifth. And then if the message is of unity, deeply, profound message of understanding unity, then it would be of sixth level, sixth density. So discernment is really important, and channels are high priority targets for negative contact. So there are lots of people who've spun out and lost their balance by channeling, as well as unwittingly became a mouthpiece for negative disinformation or doom and gloom. So one channel who made heavy predictions for things, 3 Days of Darkness in the 90s, when I asked him, how do you know they're who you think they are, he says, well, I just say what they tell me, and I know because I get the same feeling every time. Well, that's great, but that doesn't indicate what level and what degree of maturity the source is.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's very easy for people to fool themselves. Meanwhile, there's very interesting channeling also, different qualities.
Yeah, I find Seth was interesting.
Yeah.
He had I found him really interesting. I haven't read all of his stuff, but I did find I related to a lot of what he talked about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't think people need to be doing channeling to do spiritual growth, to make their own transformation.
Meditation for me is to me, and I could be misspeaking, but to me it's kind of a way of channeling. It's sort of a form of channeling. It's just connecting, I should say. So I kind of stick with meditation and go with that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, meditation at best is a training of the mind in concentration and clarity and deeper knowing, but also dissolves psychological defenses and allows deeper contact to higher self, to our true being. So,
would you say that, and this just kind of came to me, that dreams and meditation are somewhat similar? I mean, don't you raise your vibration and go into a subconscious level when you're meditating, and same with dreams? What do you think about that?
Yes, I think that they're very similar. It basically represents a bridging between the conscious mind through the personal unconscious to the deeper collective unconscious, through the roots of mind to higher self or soul. Meditation is like conscious sleep, where the conscious mind is turned off and goes to sleep, and deeper levels of the mind are available, and the point of awareness or the light of awareness shines into the deeper mind. And with sufficient practice and release of blockages, more and more higher self shines through, whether or not we use the term higher self. Like a Buddhist would never talk about higher self. Hindus talk about Atman, but meaning a true being. But Buddhists don't. Meanwhile, there are some quite enlightened Buddhist teachers. So yeah, meditation opens the same gateways. You can't become enlightened by dreaming, but dreaming is a communication, can be a communication from higher levels, for sure.
Great. Well, we're at the bottom half of the hour, but I do have another quick question I wanted to ask and touch bases on real quick. So I do have a caller. I got a caller holding, but I wanted to talk about the dark night of the soul. We could talk about that towards the end of the show, unless you wanted to touch bases on that, because that's another big topic that I hear a lot.
I would say that people can understand that the current time on Earth is a dark night of the soul for the entire collective humanity. This is the dark night of humanity, which is ending soon and coming into daylight. Dark night of the soul, knowing that the being is a soul, that we are spiritual beings or great awareness points of light in a human body at a very particular point at human history for the planet's own evolution. Dark night of the soul is a death and rebirth phase of ending and new beginning, which requires confrontation, with the repressed, with that which has